Yes, sir.
Yeah, there we go. I'm over here bobbing my head.
We're on YouTube. You've got a countdown. I didn't know what was going to happen at the end of it. Instead, it's just boom, us and Ed coming in.
Yes, we are here. Ed Smith is back for Trailer Talk on One Lap Down, and we're going all dirt today, and that's why we brought this man in, because as far as the people in our world, nobody knows more about dirt racing than Ed Smith. So first things first, before we talk about the Chili Bowl, Ed, how are you doing so far this week?
Doing great. Doing fantastic. Glad to be here. It's actually my son's first birthday today, so it's fantastic day. EJ, 1 year old. So my wife and I, we made it 1 year. There we go.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing the news, and certainly happy birthday to EJ. And you're also got to be pretty happy after this weekend's results in the Chili Bowl. Now, for Brad and I, this is the first one that we've watched, paid attention to. But for you, do you even know the number?
No, I've kept up with. This was probably one that I kept up with more than any. Last year, as a Kyle Larson fan, really started to keep up with it. But every year, just because I grew up in a dirt family, we at least knew what was going on when the Chili Bowl was and those type of things. So
growing up in a dirt family,
love it.
So first reactions. I mean, obviously, your favorite driver won the race, so that's a huge part. But just overall thoughts on how it went that last week.
I mean, to be honest, and Brad and I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I was a little bit disappointed on how long the track prep took between the B main and the A main on the last night. But they want to bring the best racing. Few people don't really know how much Tony Stewart does in the track prep in a lot of tracks, and he decided not to come and help out with the track prep. So I want to think that maybe not having that ringer there that knows how tracks work may have slowed the process down a little bit. But other than that, I am impressed with being able to handle the Chili Bowl in an indoor arena with 300 plus people that are just entered into the race, much less every team has how many people there. For them to be able to pull that off in a pandemic is fantastic for NASCAR, fantastic for NHRA, fantastic for F1. It's fantastic for all racing because all of them are pretty much happening outside.
Yeah, that is for sure. I have one more question before I let Brad chime in here. I'm just one of the semantics of watching it is naturally when you're a race car fan, a race driving fan, a racing fan, you think of the drivers' names and their numbers. I'm just curious where the extra piece of those numbers sometimes came. So it'd be like 17B or something. Is that just because there are multiple numbers throughout the field?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from that. But if you go to your local racetrack, so if we went over here to the dirt track close to us, over on Natural Bridge, a lot of them will put the number. They might be a lineage driver, so their dad raced. So their dad was like my dad was 71. I think if I raced, I might be 71 JR for junior or 71 like K or whatever it may be, depending on whether it be some sort of lineage or some sort of their name or the team owner. A lot of the times that you saw at the Chili Bowl where they had some sort of letter after it, if you knew who owned the car, typically it was the number that the driver wanted with the letter of the car owner.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because that threw me off guard from the very start.
Yeah.
Admittedly, that ignorance was shown.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Joe, I didn't understand anything what was going on the whole time. I was just trying to figure this stuff out. I think one of I recorded it and was telling Ed about that earlier. Where
good job.
I think I was ashamed that I didn't watch it live, but kind of with our work schedule right now, I was long asleep before we got to those final races. So when I was just fast forwarding, I didn't realize I think it was almost about 2 hours between those two races at the end. But it was cool. It was cool to see some names you recognized, and I know that, like you said, Tony Stewart has such a big role with it. And I remember reading last week about how he wasn't able to, elected not to, I guess, with the COVID protocol. Ed, what do you think if you would have sat there a year ago and known that the 2021 Chili Bowl, they'd have a pickup truck going around the front with women hanging signs about wearing your mask and doing all that stuff? What do you think you would have thought? Flash forward a year and seen that.
Yeah, I think that's the funny part because I mean those women in the back of the pickup truck have been around for a long time at the Chili Bowl, but they're usually just telling you what event you're watching. Just like a ringside girl, they're saying, "Oh, this is the A main, this is the E main, this is the F main," for everybody to kind of look at it and see where they're at. But for them to run around there, at one point they had the wrong main, but they were making sure that sign was there to tell you to get up their mask. And they actually kicked people out. They had some videos of people that were sitting in the stands without a mask, and they just walked up to them and said, "You're out." There was a strict policy on masks up the whole time. So I guess it worked.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what was it? I mean, we started watching some of these races, and there's like shocks falling out of these cars, and they're just bouncing all over the place. So, I mean, in your experience with watching this and the sport, like, what do I look for going forward? What makes the best cars and the best drivers with this?
Well, I think you've seen the best drivers in the A main. I think they got the ticker rolling down at the bottom. Those are probably going to be the same names or pretty close to it. There's some young guns in there that are going to come up and do it. But in this open wheel world, those are, I mean, these names that are rolling across, you see Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Christopher Bell, Rico Abreu. I mean, those guys are the same ones that have been there the last 5-6 years, and they're going to probably continue to do that. There's some car things they're talking about, springs and shocks, whether it be a coilover spring or just regular standard straight shock. If anybody in a coilover spring can win in the Chili Bowl, because there is some options there. But those top cars are definitely electing to go with just a regular shock package or a non-coilover spring on those. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to change. They're going to keep getting faster, and really it depends on the track prep. On what those guys can do and how they can adjust. There's so much that I didn't realize even how much they can adjust from within the car. Those guys don't have wings on it, but the winged guys, they can adjust the pitch of the depth of their wing and on top of them within the car, how much spring, brake, this, that, and the other. I thought, coming from a late model world, really there's just a brake bias that they can change, and so I think that's really where we're going at with those type of things.
As far as impressions, I think the craziest thing that I witnessed or sticks out to my mind watching the racing is, I mentioned to you last week, I guess there's two things. One is just how up on the wheel they got to be on these cars, because there's so much power. You mentioned there's no wings, so that you have to deal with sliding it in there. There's no just driving around the turn, like you're whipping that sucker in there, and trying to pass people, at the same time. But also I was so fascinated, and it didn't work out for Christopher Bell, but with that curb that ends up getting put up near the top, because there's so much dirt slung up near the top, and you can't really see it when you're watching it on TV, but obviously it makes a difference when someone bumps up with that. I mean, Larson had 2 times in the A main where it could have all gone wrong for him, and obviously it did for Bell. It flipped multiple times. I just wanted to, I don't know, I guess you talked earlier in the week about Larson's first race, and there was an issue with lanes. I didn't watch that race. What was the difference between that one and the one that we got to see in the A main? What worked well for the last race?
Well, I think I don't really know what happened with the track prep earlier in the week that caused the track to just be basically so black slick that it was essentially an asphalt track. And I we're going to Bristol with the dirt stuff, and I'm curious to see if that's what Bristol turns into. Is it's going to be, the dirt's going to get so packed down, so much rubber is coming off those tires, because the tire compound, there's grooves in it, but the tire compounds, they break down real easy. So you can't really see them, but essentially they're doing a burnout the whole time they're going around through there. And if they're doing that, then they're just laying that rubber down. So it got the track to where it was only one fast way around. They couldn't get up top. And then even in that A main, you could start to see you really couldn't get through the middle, because like you said, there was a lump, and that's what Christopher Bell got lumped on him. Is he tried to go in low, sent it sideways, boom, and he was up and over top. So like I said, it all goes back to the track prep and how they're handling it, how the moisture is flowing from the bottom side to the top side, and did they put more water on it? Did it be able to handle the track? So there's a lot more that I don't even know that goes into all that type of stuff. But it's definitely an interesting that it can change literally not in one race, but the whole night. It's going to change multiple times, like we saw.
Right, and just to add on to the Christopher Bell flip in, and obviously they had a flip counter and all that kind of stuff for the entertainment purposes. What we talked a lot about, obviously the big divisions of drag racing and stock car racing and open wheel racing and their safety progressions. What about these cars? You've watched midget racing like this your whole life. Have they done anything? Do they need to do anything? I mean, obviously there's room in there for one person and there's a roll cage all around them. So has anything really changed safety wise?
Yeah, I think they're all wearing Hans devices as well. I think it's required. So they went to some of that stuff. A lot of those guys that have flipped in those say they feel pretty safe. In my head process with doing it, and I haven't really set in an old one to compare it to a new one or anything like that. But I think that cockpit is so much like a fighter pilot cockpit in a sense that they're pretty safe. And you see some crashes where they've been taught to essentially once they're gone, they just hug themselves, get their hands off the wheel, so they're not snapping wrists, hands, fingers, and those type of things. And I think you would think you talked about them being up on the wheel. If you really looked in at those drivers, they're not necessarily sitting up in this situation. Their wheel is kind of down here, almost like a big rig. It seems like to me.
Yeah.
So the difference in how they're handling that is cool.
Yeah, and I think those were like. It seems like it would be safer because they're not going as fast as some of these other cars that we're watching when they're out on road tracks or the big ovals. But at the same time, it's just I feel there's a lot of parts and stuff flying around with these guys that are just out in the open right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is that like? Like, have you been to the Chili Bowl? Have you been to one of these races indoors?
I've not been to the Chili Bowl, and they also have one in St. Louis that they do. That's typically in the winter that they bring in and do different types. So I've never really been at the Chili Bowl. Like I said, watched it multiple times and was very, very awesome that they offer the Chili Bowl for free this year. I think that might open some windows to people that have never got to tune in. I mean, we were talking about it, Joe, at the beginning of the week. Oh, how do we watch it? What are we going to do? And then all of a sudden they were offering it for free. So that was awesome. But I mean,
I do apologize. Later in the week, I realized my YouTube TV subscription has MAV TV on there. So in a non-COVID time, you all are coming over. We'll put it up on my projector, right? So we'll work for that going forward. But
there we go.
I felt pretty guilty sitting there Saturday afternoon. I was like, oh no.
It worked out. It worked out, especially as you mentioned, the free part being on Facebook too. MAV TV put it on their Facebook page. So that's how I watched it because I don't have MAV TV on my my account. But I thought it was very wise for them to recognize, especially having 13 different drivers with a NASCAR affiliation in your field to start the week. You need to be able to capitalize on the intrigue that comes from people who don't normally watch that, but maybe they follow Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson on Twitter and they're tweeting about it all week. Well, how do I watch it? So very wise decision on their part. And I guess my lasting question would be, from races like this, obviously it's a huge deal and that's why NASCAR racers are in it, but there are people who do these races regularly. There are dirt track racers regularly that attend this. Based on anything you've read or heard, anybody stand out that might have a good chance for the dirt season coming up, or maybe a young buck that could make a name for themselves and maybe be one of the NASCAR people coming back someday in the future?
Yeah, I don't really know, Joe. I can't say that I follow it that closely to be able to say, yeah, this guy's going to be up and coming. That, I mean, they talked about in the A-Main, there was a couple of those kids that were 18, 19, 20 years old. So, that, I mean, I can only think, and if you watch some of the coverage there, it seems like Toyota Racing is using this to kind of help progress some of the guys along. So any of those cars that really had a Toyota logo on it, they're probably in Toyota Racing Development, which, whether you like it or not, and my favorite all-time driver has stated his opinion on the Toyota Racing Development, but
I think they could look a couple more Xfinity cars.
So, I mean, I don't know anybody right offhand name wise that's gonna come up. But if you look at pretty much anybody in the stable of Tony Stewart, or look at Tony Stewart's who Tony Stewart's looking at to come to be at Stewart Haas, he's going to bring somebody from the dirt world and try to groom them and bring them up, just because I feel like he understands that they know how to handle a car and know how to handle one that changes and know how to handle a track that changes without being able to. There's no communication back to their team while they're in there. They're in there by themselves. Some local events, they can have sticks and they can tell them where to be and up and down and low. But other than that, it's pretty much you got to fill it out and figure it out yourself. So, but yeah, I don't know any really up and comers.
Fair enough. Well, you mentioned something that I want to bring Brad in on. Brad last week admitted he was struggling with racing game.
Oh my gosh,
Heat 5. And,
it's not going well.
And it's still not going well, apparently. But as anybody who's played it knows, you do the career mode, start out racing dirt. So Brad, my question to you is, did you learn anything watching this weekend that would help you in the virtual world?
No, because it looks so much different. And this is ridiculous. This came across while I was playing the game, because I've got it kind of figured out how to do the dirt racing like in the game. I really bang into a lot of people bouncing around, but watching this stuff, I mean, the way they're sliding and taking different lines, people getting up high and just finding a groove, that didn't happen in video games. I get my one shot driving a truck and I get like last. I can't find the line. I can't get any. So it's an ongoing process. No developments from last week to this week with NASCAR.
Hey, get high, wide, and handsome. Get up there on the cushion and let it roll. Let it rip. Yeah, okay. Put it on the lip and let it rip, baby.
All right, I'm gonna take that advice going into this week of the dilemma and saga of Brad's NASCAR heat experience.
I do have a question for you. Okay, so in the dirt world, a lot of people they get some sort of name. So Kyle Larson, Young Money. Mm-hmm. If you had to, what would be your name if you were
past?
that's a
We're going past and last. That's my
it goes with the blue flag.
No, I did. Yeah, it does go with the blue flag. No, I think Joe, you got any? You have any thoughts on that?
Any quick draws? That's what I want to know. I don't even know what my name would be.
I can't relate to that. I don't have that game, so I can't. And I haven't seen you play, Brad, so I can't base one off of how you perform.
Well, I think the question goes to you too. What would yours be?
I mean, I haven't played it, so I don't know how.
Brad, the Coffee King.
Coffee King. Go with yeah, I guess you get a lot of you could get dirt into coffee grounds. You kind of look at that. So I think with that, in that regard, we go with Cup of Joe over there.
Okay.
And, and I think we go with Brad's Blend over this side. So
you can't be Bad Brad or anything like that. Brad Kozlowski already stole that,
So we'll go with Breakfast Brad.
Early back. That's a good question, Brad. We'll revisit it. I'll think of something, and when I think of something for Ed too, when he comes back on, we'll have to address him as his pseudonym. It could get out of hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
That's totally fine if we do that. Well, Ed, man, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
First of all, from my perspective, and I'm sure Brad feels this way too, just getting us into it. And we're dying for content. We're
less than a month until Daytona, baby.
We're spending hours talking about paint schemes. We need racing. We need stuff to.
Some of these paint schemes, boys, we got to get them off the record books. I can tell you that.
Well, Brad and I are going to.
We're about to talk about them a little bit.
Our best and worst. So take a listen and see what you think about our choices. Not everybody has come out with an official one yet, but based on the ones that have, we have our best and worst of those paint schemes. But anybody who else is interested in motorsports, there is a 24 hours Daytona this week. So I mean that's coming up. So we got a little bit of something to get us to the 14th, but
it's there.
Nothing has us more prepared than right within arm's reach. But once again, Ed, thanks so much for your time, buddy, and we're definitely going to have you back on here soon.
All righty, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you.